Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the DVC Show, coming to you from the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined at the table this week by my good friends Paul Krieger.
Hey, everybody.
Amy Krieger.
Hello.
From DVC Resale Market.
Yes.
.com. Marissa Valaton.
Hello, hello.
Our producer back in the Nook, Mr. Panda.
Hello there.
And just a reminder, this show, along with all the DVC content we produce, brought to you by the world of DVC. That includes DVCResaleMarket.com, where you can buy a DVC contract for a lot less than you're going to pay if you go direct. DVCRentalStore.com if you'd like to rent out your points, or if you want to rent points to try DVC before you buy. A lot cheaper than going through Disney Direct. A lot cheaper. Great way to save money on even if you're not interested in DVC. It's a great way to save money on your next Disney vacation. And of course, the crack dealers of the DVC world, Monerafinancial.com, where Amy works, and they will finance your DVC resale purchase and basically just say yes. They'll just say yes. Okay? Don't have to worry about anything. They'll just say yes. That's why I call them crack dealers, because the barrier to entry with Monera Financial is non-existent, is pretty much non-existent. So those are our sponsors. If you like our content, please show your support by patronizing our wonderful sponsors. Okay, so this week, want to talk about some of the news that has been coming up, because there's been a lot of it. There has been a lot of it. Let's start with the villas at Disneyland Hotel. They released, they're now on sale.
Now on sale for members, adding 1 point, correct?
Yep.
As of yesterday. So.
And, met with surprise and shock, I would say, on the pricing.
Yeah.
$230 a point, which, a lot better than I thought it was going to be. But devil's in the details. There's a transient tax of $273 per point, which is ridiculously high. And when I say a transient tax, that means when you use your points to stay at the Disneyland villas, when you check out, you will have a bill. And that bill will be $2.73. All right? This is, $2.73 for every point you spend on that.
That's the 2023 rate.
That's what it is in 2023. Now, keep in mind, for those of you who follow our show, you might remember years ago, before Josh D'Amaro became the chairman of Disney Parks and Resorts, he was president of Disneyland, and he was brought in there specifically to help negotiate with the Anaheim City Council, because his predecessor had kind of screwed that relationship up, and the City Council was kind of fed up with Disney. And one of the things Josh did, which at the time was a brilliant political move, was telling the city of Anaheim, we don't want any special consideration anymore. And, the city of Anaheim was like, okay. Well, now we're seeing repaired the relationship, at the time considered a brilliant political move. Now, DVC members in this particular moment may not think so, because that transient tax that you're looking at is a direct result of that decision. Now, Disney has to pay on any of their new stuff. They have to pay more. And this tax is part of that, which, of course, Disney's not paying. You are. And so the pricing at, $230 a point was met with, I think, a good reaction that was lower than we thought it was going to be. But that transient tax. What's the transient tax at Aulani? Do we know?
Alani, I don't know. I know that, Grand Californian also has a transient tax.
But it's built into the dues.
Baked into the dues, and it's around, I think, like 55 cents per point.
Yeah.
So that's what really, a lot of people have asked about that too. Is Grand Californian going to go up now? That's sort of baked in. My understanding is that's sort of baked into the older rules before DeMauro made that agreement and sort of voided any consideration or anything like that. So Grand Cal is going to stay at that lower rate baked in at like 55 cents, and now we're going to see this new giant rate. And that's on top of the annual dues too, which are also kind of astronomical at Disneyland Hotel, comparatively speaking. It's at I think it's like $9.06 a point for 2023. So some hefty annual dues for that resort as well, which is surprising. Normally we see things at like Riviera. They've historically had very low dues since it's been actively
low.
Yeah. So like the annual dues for a current selling property, normally they just keep them lower, try to bide their time before they crank them up a little bit, and they need to do some work on the property or something. But crazy to see that. We did get incentives that came out yesterday for the tower as well. That's going to drop these prices somewhere in the range, depending on how many points you are looking to buy, somewhere anywhere from like 215 to 207 per point. So that, like any DVC, new DVC that comes on sale, there's going to be incentives to do that and purchase early. Normally, these are the best incentives we will see for a new property. I think the most interesting factor is the Magical Beginnings promotion that they have actually just done, which kind of snuck up on me, and we've only kind of learned about it within the past 24 hours. We knew about Magical Beginnings before. Essentially, this was if you bought a new DVC contract and you weren't going to use that year's allotment of points, DVC would buy them back. So essentially buy back those points, not give them to you as part of that closing, and take that money and apply it towards your purchase. Well, for Disneyland Hotel, that price has been bumped up all the way to $22 per point.
Wow.
Which significantly undercuts the price per point for this tower.
Sure.
So they're kind of getting into the range, and I pulled up on Disboards a little bit ago, someone that had a Disney Visa, which gives you a $1,200 discount. But they bought 200 points. They have a Disney Visa, which gives you like a $1,250 discount. They did the Magical Beginnings, which gives you the $22 per point. Everything wrapped down together, he got his price per point down to $168.75 per point for the new Disneyland Hotel Tower.
Wow.
Which is, if you bundle these deals, then you can really package that down. And I have to imagine that's partly in response to the transient tax and the negative press and the negative response that they were getting from that.
Yeah, that it's going to be a headwind for them in selling these. Like I said, right now, as we're recording this, on sale with existing members.
Yeah.
And when does it open up to general public?
I believe it is May 30th. Just moved away from that screen. May 16th.
Oh, May 16th. Okay.
No, wait, that's bookings. I'm all over the place. May 30th. I was right the first time. May 2nd for current members, which is passed. May 30th for new members.
Oh, he's sitting right in front of me. Reading is fundamental. Now,
I took a look at the Alani, because you had asked the price per point for Alani transient taxes. It's really hard to find the 2023 chart. So I went back to the 2022 chart. I compared it to the point charts and did the math. And I came out to around 57 cents per point in 2022 for Alani transient tax. I think a big difference for Alani, though, is that Oahu, the transient tax is 3%, and for the state of Anaheim, it's 15%. So that could be, part of the difference there.
And that's on cash bookings too, right?
Yes.
And so are there certain hotels in Anaheim that will have that and then ones that don't?
Yeah, so they're actually baked into the hotel price per night.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't really see it.
Yeah.
So it's more of an optics thing for a lot of people. You know what I mean? It just, when you're a DVC member and you like checking out and not having that bill. And Alani feels a little different because when you're going to Alani, it just feels a little more exotic, than going to Disneyland. But I think it's more optics, because if you really do the math, there are some really well-educated people in the DVC fan community that have kind of worked out the math and said, okay, if I own this for 50 years, even at like 20, 30 years or so, even, with some increased taxes and some increased dues, it still works out that I'm paying less than like $14 a point in the long run. So the value is there, and that was just at $230 a point. So, you get it for $160 something a point.
Yeah.
The value is there.
Yeah.
But, the optics and how it looks and how it feels when you have to pay those taxes when you check out.
Now, as we mentioned before, the transient tax for Grand Californian is already baked in to the annual dues. Why didn't they do that here? Any idea?
It would have made the dues so high. I don't know if they're willing to take it.
I
I don't know what
yeah.
optics look worse, like coming in at like $11 per point on dues, or like having that kind of like in the small print.
Well, and
There's
Grand
a
Cal is
transient
paying
tax.
around 51 cents or something a point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know that what was agreed upon then that was acceptable with the city of Anaheim is the same thing that is able to be agreed upon now. I don't know that they have a choice
True.
to bake it into the annual dues.
Yeah.
And there is a difference though with Grand Cal that you do have to consider, although Grand Cal still has the better end of the deal. Paul and I are Grand Cal owners. We pay that transient tax and our dues regardless where we're using those Grand Cal points.
Right.
So if we're using our points at Saratoga, we're still paying those dues. We actually rented out 68 points last year. The renter doesn't have to pay when they check in. We paid those transient taxes already. So Grand Cal owners pay it no matter what. Whereas if you own Disneyland and you use those points somewhere else, you're not paying those transient taxes if you're using them at Grand Floridian or, Polynesian. You're only using them when you stay. And then the flip side, if we go and stay with Animal Kingdom points, we have to pay those taxes too at Disneyland. So it's a whole different system, and I don't know that DVC had an option of
Yeah.
how it worked.
And let's talk about the impact this has had on Grand Californian sales.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at DVC resale market site right now. Absolutely no.
Zero.
For weeks, there are no.
Well, there have been, but they sell within like seconds.
Yes. Right now there are no Grand Californian contracts available for sale. And these aren't cheap. What are they going for a point now?
So the range is like 250s to 270s. However, we'll probably see that creep up to like the high 200s, maybe low 300s, just because, again, supply and demand.
And what do you think the reason is that there's now a demand for these? I mean, Grand Cal's always been popular.
Yeah.
But why do you think this level of demand now?
Oh,
We've always had it, but I think it calmed down. So if you look over the last like 2 years, it's always hard to keep Grand Cal on the site. However, the last 6 to 8 months, we've had an influx of inventory because it's not moving as fast because everyone was waiting. They're like, I'm waiting for the tower. I'm waiting for the tower to compare. And then people compared and said, okay, I got what I needed to know, and this is the decision I'm making. So it got everybody off of the fence. Now, some people probably went the tower route, but if you take all those people waiting on the fence, you just had an influx of demand for Grand Cal.
Grand Cal still just has that intimate feel to it too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what we did. Originally Amy really wanted to buy in at the new Disneyland Hotel Tower, but we stayed at Grand Cal. We loved it so much that we were like, maybe having these points will be better and we'll enjoy being a little bit closer and enjoy being right there for that stay. A lot of this news broke near the end of April, and I think the impact that's had on average DVC resale prices is profound already too. So in March of 2023, the average resale price was $246 per point for Grand Cal. That's already shot up in April. So the total for April, $257 per point.
Wow.
And I think it's just getting started in terms of that upward ramp. And, as you said, Marissa, it has been as high as $300 a point. And so I think it's going to begin to creep back up near that level because people are seeing the demand. And we had someone on DVC Fan that actually ran the numbers compared to buying Grand Cal now via resale versus buying a new Disneyland hotel contract. And Grand Cal, in a lot of those situations, I'm pretty sure actually won out in terms of being the better value.
Really?
As compared to buying a new contract. And that's taking into consideration an unknown, which is how much are dues going to go up? We can estimate that. How much is the transient tax going to go up? Is Anaheim and Disneyland always going to play along and be friendly from now on? Or is there going to be something that happens and that tax gets increased again?
Yeah.
So a lot of unknowns in that calculation, but it
Yeah,
says
and
good things for Grand
And
Cal.
I do want to give a shout out to Ryan who did that.
Yep.
Ryan, it's Chung, I think. If you go over on DVC Fan, he actually did the math. He has a spreadsheet, and it shows.
We're talking
where
the website or the
he did it in the
group?
Facebook group. Yeah. So, and I believe anytime you post a file, it ends up in maybe in the files in the group. So if you go to group, you go to files. But he did break it down, and I believe he said that within X amount of years, you can obviously see that Grand Cal does win out in terms of value, even at the higher price per point. But a couple other things about Grand Cal are you cannot buy it directly right now. They are not selling it at all. And so resale is your only option. And then, just what Marissa said is exactly what we're seeing on social media, on Disboards, on DVC Fan, and with Monera, with people who are looking to buy. A lot of people were waiting to see what happened with that tower. Yeah. And as soon as they found out about those transient taxes, they were like, nope, I want to go to Grand Cal now. I want Grand Cal. I've been waiting. I've been saving for this contract. I want Disneyland points, but now I want them to be at Grand Cal.
And one more point too, when you start to look at those comparisons, right? I think one thing that a lot of people don't compare is, let's say 10 years from now, you're like, I'm out, I'm done. Which one's going to be the easiest one to sell to, and where does that value lie? And Grand Cal has always been that highest demanded DVC location, so you have to calculate that in too to say, will Grand Cal increase here, and where will Disneyland Tower increase, and what does that look like if I ever need to recoup that investment?
Because we've not even talked, but resale restrictions.
Yeah,
so
that's going to bring that up.
Yeah, that's going to be a big impact on Disneyland Hotel long term. We've seen what it's done to Riviera in terms of where it takes the resale price. So I imagine that we'll see a similar thing, probably a little bit higher given the allure of Disneyland and what we've seen with Grand Cal over time. But I have to imagine the resale restriction will negatively impact it over time as well.
Yeah, because I'm looking at Riviera resales right now. You're talking, depending on the point size, 136, 133, 145. Not what you would expect for a new resort, but that's because of the resale restriction. So for those who don't know, with any new DVC properties like the Disneyland Hotel, if you buy there and you sell that contract, if you buy there direct, you can use those points anywhere. But if you resell it, the person buying it can only use those points at Disneyland Hotel. Same thing exists for Riviera. So that has had the effect of somewhat depressing prices, resale prices on these, which is why Disney did it. That's what they were trying to do, was depress the resale prices. And, to some degree it worked, not to the degree we originally thought, because we were thinking, at one point, these were going to resell for like $80 a point.
Doomsday.
But that hasn't materialized. That has not materialized. But still, you're talking about a pretty depressed price on Riviera.
Yeah.
So whether or not the Disney, because people that bought into what was when they originally offered Grand Cal, what was it a point?
So they offered it with incentives, and you could get it into the low 90s per point.
Wow.
Yeah.
So imagine that when they first started selling Grand Californian. You're talking low 90s.
And then your sales
point.
agent got an iPad.
Wow. And now on resale, you're looking at, $250, $260, $270, sometimes $300 a point. Now, with these resale restrictions at Disneyland Hotel, I doubt very seriously we're going to see that kind of appreciation on these. Which is exactly what DVC wanted.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is exactly what DVC wanted. So very interesting. See, now you booked a cash room.
We did book a cash room. We will try our best to book with points when the general registration window opens, which is not until sometime in July, I believe. July 27th to be in.
Yeah. So we will try.
So we will try.
Points.
But we did book the cash room just to make sure we get out there, see the tower when it first opens, and we're definitely excited to experience that. But we'll use points if we can.
Opening night inflated prices.
Yeah.
They were,
What were you paying?
9 something.
For what?
I think it's a preferred view deluxe studio.
Yep.
For studio was $900 a night.
Yeah.
The 4-person sleep one.
But yes, not the
Not the
smaller,
tower version.
not the smaller
Still.
duo studio.
I think
yeah.
it was inflated for opening night. A lot of it, which is, and then this shows you like the value of points, because if you look at the point charts, it's a lot less.
Yeah, and this goes back to why they're doing those magical beginning offerings, because they know that as long as this tower is new, it's going to be the shiny object at Disneyland, and so they're going to be able to sell it at an inflatable point
That's
cost.
what I was going to say. They can go ahead and just take those cash rooms. Give us your points back, because we'll charge you $900 a night.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so crazy, though. Like, when I look back to when I started with DVC directly in 2014, at the time we had just launched the Grand Floridian, and then Polynesian was soon to come. And at that point, there were no incentives, zero, like not $1 off. And that was the first time they had flipped to that model. So it's crazy. And we had so much demand then, and we were like at peak of sales. So it's crazy to see that shift and change. And now you're taking a property that should be your most demanded property in the DVC collection, and you're offering such significant discounts, which blows my mind.
Yep.
Yeah, it's now when this opens up to general, I'll ask you this, Marissa, since you worked as a DVC guy directly.
Yep.
When this opens up for general sales, how do you think this is going to sell?
I think it'll sell better in general sales than it will for members. I think your members are going to be your most educated guests. And so on the Disneyland side, as long as, and they've shifted their whole team out there, so they're going to be a lot more aggressive in their sales approach than they were in like the Grand Cal era. And so as long as they can reach that demand, I think the biggest change though is how are you marketing it in the parks? And I know they've pulled back a lot on that. So I think at like Disneyland and the West Coast, they're going to have to do a really strong job of marketing that in the parks. I don't think your normal, like everyday DVC new beginner guest is going to go and know all the back end of like Grand Cal versus Disneyland Tower versus transient tax. They're just going to be excited about the Disney Vacation Club side and something West Coast.
Right.
So if they market it well, it should do better than I think the member early sale.
No, we'll
There's
say.
an if though.
It's a big if. It's a big if. All right, because we have other things we need to talk about, namely the kind of out of left field announcement that DVC is taking over the cabins at Fort Wilderness and will be demolishing them
Yeah.
and putting in new ones that will be a DVC property. 350 new cabins comprising 750 acres at Fort Wilderness. Now, there were very distinct responses to this.
Yeah.
On the DVC side, DVC members loved it. They loved it. Overwhelmingly, they were like, "Here, just take my money." Whereas non-DVC members are furious. Now, you got to keep in mind that the cabins are considered a moderate resort. And they were priced the way a moderate resort would be priced. Now, again, this is in Disney, in the world of Disney, a moderate is, $350 a night. But this was a real option for families. It had a full kitchen. It slept, 5 people? Six.
Yeah.
Six or seven. Because you've got 4 in the bedroom because you got the bunk beds.
And 2 in the living room.
You got 2 in the living room.
So 6.
6. Now, all DVC properties are deluxe properties. So, as of right now, so the assumption is going to be that these will be upgraded experiences, upgraded cabins, upgraded amenities to make them quote unquote deluxe. Now, I have this thing in the back of my head, and I have for a long time. I have nothing to base it on at all. It's just a feeling, and I could absolutely be wrong. The other thing is this may be DVC's foray into moderate resorts
Yep.
because they are seeing the success they are having with adding DVC properties to existing resorts. You know, we saw it at the Poly, we saw it at the Grand, see it at Beach Club. Is anybody going to tell me that Coronado Springs isn't ripe for the picking? Especially the tower?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
hope. I
Oh,
hope
that would be
it is.
awesome.
Yeah.
Especially the tower.
Yeah.
And this could be their foray into that.
Yeah.
Is DVC willing to depart from the talking point that these are all deluxe resorts and offer a product that is more moderate? And would they offer that at a different price point? They would have to. They would have to. Well, they don't have to do anything, but you would assume that if they're going to do that, it would be offered a different price point because we have no idea about any of the details with this, with these Fort Wilderness cabins. So it could end up being, we'll know immediately when they announce the price per point. If this price per point is considerably lower.
Yeah, there's no real written rule out there that DVC has to be deluxe.
But that's been a selling point.
Yeah, it has been a selling point. But at the same time, it's a way to prepay for vacations. But Fort Wilderness is a great test into the moderate realm because I don't know that you necessarily have to lower the price per point, but the point charts can reflect a reasonable standard for, like a moderate level. But they can still be decent point charts because every single cabin sleeps 6 people, right? These aren't deluxe studios. These aren't even 1 bedrooms because some 1 bedrooms are only 4 or 5. But, you can sleep 6 people. So I would expect these point charts to reflect what's coming in the future. You can sleep 6 for, 1 bedroom points or, you know what I mean? Especially when you look at the point charts of Fort Wilderness cabins in the Disney collection, which is that exchange program where you have to pay the extra $95 and they're usually very overinflated. Paul and I looked at them and they're actually very reasonable when you compare them to 1 bedroom, regular deluxe villas. So I think the point charts are going to really tell a lot. And then, if we see them move into Coronado Springs, which is absolute dream of mine because Coronado is one of our favorite resorts. Maybe it's not diminishing the product and lowering that price per point to buy in, but maybe the point charts at a moderate resort would be a little more reasonable than the point charts staying at like Grand Floridian or Polynesian. I don't know. That's just a thought.
The one thing that I think about this is that they are going to have to sell hard to sell these because
You think so?
even me as a Disney Vacation Club member, I'm very excited to stay here. I don't know that I would buy here. The cabins, the Fort Wilderness cabins, has a unique audience and they come all the time, year after year after year. They always come back to those cabins, and those are the people, as you said, they're angry about this decision. The DVC guides are going to have to sell hard to those people in convincing them that they should buy 50 years of vacationing here. Now, it sounds like an easy sell, but they're going to have to get over the anger part of you took away our cabins first.
They just made their target audience the most upset out of everyone. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but
DVC members, sure.
the possibility exists that they have just opened up a whole new market they didn't have before.
Yep.
Which is why they're doing this. They seem to feel that they are going to appeal to a market they don't currently have. And that's why I think this may be a test bed
Yeah.
and it's the place that makes the most sense to do it.
Yeah.
This is a test bed for can we get away with inching into moderate resorts? And I personally think that's where it's going. It's going.
I'm just really excited to see one of these things just roll down I-4 because they're being prefabbed off-site. So I'm just excited to be rolling down I-4 someday and seeing like a Fort Wilderness cabin going down on,
Right.
on
For those
a truck.
and for those who don't realize, the cabins at Fort Wilderness are actually trailers. They're actually trailers. They were built off site and brought in. And I assume that's what's going to happen here.
You said 350 of them. Are
I-
there already 350 cabins?
There are
or
more.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's more. I think when we looked, it was like somewhere around like 374 or something like that. So they
Wow.
said 350-ish, but they are taking all of the cabins. So
Yeah.
I just didn't know there was that many.
And they
at all.
don't actually demolish them. So this will be the second time they've replaced them that I can remember. You know, I mean, there might be more, but last time they actually took and sold them. You could buy them for like $20,000 a
goodness.
piece. Yeah, so a bunch of them exist in this like camping park in Florida somewhere. A bunch of the previous ones. So
I'm
that's
gonna-
something to look forward to.
I'm going to convince Pete to put one in his backyard.
Yeah. Like I could fit in my backyard. My backyard.
World of DVC
But-
will have cabins.
But these cannot be like Copper Creek cabin points. You know what I mean?
No,
like
Right.
nobody
no,
would
no.
buy the resort if that's what it was.
No, these are going to have to be comparable to like one bedrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To make the argument.
Yeah. for
So
sure.
we'll see. All right. You know what? We're going to do this show as a two-parter because we're already at like what
32 minutes.
32 minutes, which is kind of the outside I like these shows to go. So next week we will talk about annual passes coming back for DVC members and the 2024 DVC member cruises on sale on our next show. So that's going to do it for this episode of the DVC show. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you again next week.